Welcome back to the PFC Podcast. The views and opinions you are about to hear are the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of anyone else. Now on to the podcast.
Welcome back to the PFC Podcast. This is Dennis, and today I'm with Max. How are you doing again today?
Hey, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me on. It's just an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Hey, I really appreciate it. And the reason why I brought you back on, we didn't actually get to finish your story. We're already pushing almost 2 hours, and this is not the Joe Rogan podcast. So, and I really wanted to focus on kind of the second half of your story with this one, and the kind of the recovery, the behavioral health side of things. And I think that deserved its own kind of time there. So when we last talked to you, you were coming back, like you had just gotten back to the States. This was after your meeting with Johnny Cash and the Indian chief. So, what was that, like, the recovery process, the rehabilitation, like your family is around you, friends are coming to visit you. Like, I imagine that's got to be pretty intense.
Yeah. It was a whirlwind that you don't really have even time to consider and to process, right? One of the things that I think is so unique about GWAT in general, for better or worse, is that we are able to get, and are able to get our casualties home so fast. And that's on paper, and to people that haven't been in combat, that sounds like a really good thing. Like, yo, our guys just got messed up. Let's get them home as soon as possible. Why would you not want that, right? But for those of you that have been in that situation, that something happens to your mind when, you are out doing something, and all of a sudden your helicopter's taking fire, and you have a mass cal and you take care of a bunch of people, or your helicopter crashes, and then you get evacuated to a Roll 2, and then you're in Baghdad that night in the ICU, and then in Germany 3 days later, and then at Walter Reed 5-6 days later, and then at home less than a week later. And you're like, and you don't stop moving during any of that. And it's like 8 days ago, I was in my room back at this location doing the thing, and now I'm at home and I don't have any of my stuff, and none of my friends are around, and it's like it does something to your brain. It breaks it, right? Like, I mean, I remember when I was a resident, we would be getting, I remember distinctly one group of National Guard guys that came to El Paso that had been injured in Afghanistan 8 days earlier. And they came to us because the other military hospitals were full. And it was a bunch of National Guard guys that knew each other and had deployed together. And they were like, I could see them this in our trauma bay, in our ICU. This was the first time that they got to, like, process the fact that they're home and safe. And it was their first deployments, and they got messed up in an ambush on a convoy, and they were just, like, looking around at each other like, where are we, dude? Like, 8 days ago, we were just in the firefight of our lives, and now we're home in the U.S. and, like, in some strange hospital, and their family came to visit them, and it's just like, I remember, so we come home, and so it's just like, it's crazy, because when you look at World War I and World War II, and Vietnam and Korea, they didn't come home right away. Like, they even when they were getting redeployed or remobilized or like moved back to the rear or home, like they would get moved to the rear. They'd have some R&R in country, and then they would have to like take a steamer ship across the Atlantic or Pacific with their guides that they had just deployed with, and then come home and settle at home. It was like a 3 to 4 to 5 month process coming back home. But there's 2 points to that. One, it took a while, and two, you were with your boys. Like, that's another thing we don't talk about is like, if you're, I'm not an operator, but like I imagine if you're an operator, you're doing some crazy firefight thing, and then you're home a couple days later, not with your boys, right? Or in my specific case, you survive a freaking helicopter crash, and you're all together. You get a little bit of time in the ICU at Baghdad to talk about it, and then you go to launch stool where they ripped us apart, and then we had to fight to kind of come back together, and then we go to Walter Reed and just get scattered to the wind, and it's 6 days later, and I'm in a restaurant back in my hometown with my wife, and I'm like, what? Like, where am I? Where are my friends? Like, this isn't right. It's just like, take away the time, but keep the friends, keep the brothers, right? Like, I think if they had remobbed us back, like, that quick and like, but we were all together to like kind of process it together, then that would have been like good in a way, but it just kind of scattering us to the wind. Like, so let me kind of explain here. I got a little bit ahead of myself. It's like, we got to Germany. We leave Baghdad. Baghdad was great. It was honestly like probably like not like we kind of like didn't want to leave Baghdad in a as weird as it sounds. Like we really kind of didn't want to, because they got it. They understood us. They were wearing a uniform. They were in a combat zone. They were in the shitty environment with us. The medical providers, the nurses, the docs. That was obvious. And they had us all together. They had us all in a tent together, all 22 of us. And there were guys on the ICU, on the vent down here in the ICU, and the guys here, and the walking wounded dudes would be grabbing food and checking on everyone else, and the guys who couldn't walk would just be talking, right? And it was like, even though we were only there for a couple of days, like it was very obvious that was like a very therapeutic place. Who would have thought that like I would want to stay in the ICU at Baghdad, right? Like that's where we all were, and we were recovering together. And and then all of a sudden the CCAT shows up, and we start getting on the plane to go to Germany, and we go to Germany. I just realized there's maybe some parts of, I'll just say the stuff that's pertinent to this. I don't want to rag on people, places, or things, because it's, especially on this forum, it's unprofessional and not helpful. But we get to Germany, and it was very obvious that it was a different environment. We showed up and a much better facility with great people. I mean, the ICU team was amazing. Like, so when I showed up to the ICU, they had the entire ICU staff there, doctors, and they had been reading about us, getting as much information as possible, and they had one surgeon for every single ICU patient ready, waiting there. And like, it was like, okay, this is at the time Major Circuit, you're with and you're in room 3 and you got boom, and it was like, you know, like, this is boom. All right, you're in. Okay, you're in. You're like, they had done their work. Like, they had done H. Kaya a year before, I believe, about a year or two before, and like they were ready to receive, and they did it right. So like, they did a good job at it. A lot of oversight, multiple levels of care. But one of the things they did that I did not like was that they split us up. Like, we had all been together at Baghdad, and then the second we got to Launchstool, the walking wounded or the people that didn't need to be hospitalized went immediately to the barracks, or these, I don't know what it was. I never got a chance to go over there, but it was these wounded warrior buildings. I'm not sure, but like they immediately went there, and then the other people that got hospitalized went to the floor, and then before I know it, like my family of like 21 brothers turned into me and the other I think it was other 5 ICU guys, right? And then it got to the point where like the ICU staff hated my fucking guts, because the second I could walk with a cane or a limp, I just started walking to all the other rooms, checking up on them, and like going down to the floor to see my buddies, and like going and trying to get out to this other place to see everyone else. And Launchstool kind of picked up on that. That I got to give them credit, because they picked up on the fact that like it really wasn't good to keep us all alone. So they started letting people come into the ICU and basically like kind of really letting us all be together. But like I heard from my buddy Andrew, who was in those kind of I don't know what to call them except barracks, but the barracks outside the hospital. He said like it got really kind of dark there, because like they all felt like guilty that we're in the hospital and they're sitting there. And like he said, like people would, and they had like a common room, and he was telling me like people would just be sitting in the common room staring at the middle of the room, like they didn't know what to do, right? And like nothing was provided for them, you know. And again, because it's like we're not used to that, right? We want to get people home as fast as possible, but we're not really ready for like what that means or what that looks like, right? Like, you know, again, going to the analogy of the guys in World War II, you get these guys coming back from the South Pacific. They're going to be on a steamer for months with the guys they went through the shit with, and they're going to be decompressing. They're going to be talking to each other. They're going to be playing cards, drinking coffee or whatever if they got some contraband on board. Like, but they're going to be doing those human things with each other to like mentally transition. Okay, I'm not in that hellhole anymore. I'm in a safe place, but I'm in a safe place with other people that know what I went through. And I'm going to get my brain processed in this environment for a while, and then I'll be able to transition to like, okay, now I'm back home in another safe place with my family, right? To just like within a week's time go from a freaking fiery helicopter crash to like, you know, the burger joint down the street from me. It was just like my brain broke, man. And like, so we're in Launchstool, and my boss, my Med Squadron commander, is like, "Hey, we're trying to get you home as soon as possible." And I had already kind of thought, I was like, I don't want to go home. Like they asked me like, did I want to speak to a therapist when I got to the ICU at launch. So one of their intake questions was like, "Hey, do you want to speak to a chaplain or a therapist?" I was like, "Absolutely." And they were like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Yeah, I can't really process what the hell just happened to me." And now I'm in Germany in a really nice ICU. I have no clothes. I'm naked. Like I somehow made it all the way from where I was to Baghdad to Germany. I have no clothes. I literally cut a hole in a wool blanket to make it a poncho. I'm wearing scrub pants because one of the nurses at Baghdad gave me a pair of his scrub pants, and I'm wearing Adidas sandals from the Baghdad Lost and Found, which I'm pretty sure belong to a local who might be dead, right? Like that is how I made my cross country tour, right? And I'm not sitting, I haven't showered. I still reek. I've still got like diesel fuel marks on me and stuff. And like I'm in the bed at, at launch stool and the wounded warrior ladies are coming and they're like, "What do you need?" And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, "Do you have anything?" I'm like, "No, I have three things: a wool blanket with a hole in it, scrub pants, and Adidas that belong to some Iraqi. That's all I have. That is my entirety of possessions right now." And she was like, "We got you." And she shows up with this duffel bag of just clothes, wounded warrior like swag, like pants, underwear, toothbrush, toothpaste, and all this stuff. And she's like, "What else do you need?" And I was like, and I asked it kind of jokingly, but I was like, "Could you get me chewing tobacco and McDonald's?" And she was like, "Done. What do you want?" And I was like, are you for real?" She's like, "Absolutely." I was like, "I don't know, as many logs of Copenhagen and Skol as you can, varied flavors, and as much McDonald's as you can." And she was like, "Done." She brings me like massive bags of, and so then I start going to all the other guys and handing them McDonald's. And courtesy of the wounded warrior people, and like chewing tobacco, which I'm sure that the ICU team was not happy that I was handing out chewing tobacco and McDonald's, but yeah, I think they appreciated it. But again, it was just like we kept fighting and trying to make it, to bring us together, to kind of bring us together, because only really we knew what it was like. And my med squadron commander was like, "Hey, we're trying to get you home as fast as possible." And I was like, I don't really want that. And he's like, "Well, we got to." I was like, "Okay, all right." So then all of a sudden we come home, we go to Walter Reed. We're only at Walter Reed for a day. And then Walter Reed is where we really broke up. The Walking Wounded didn't even go to Walter Reed. They stayed at some clinic building by Andrews Air Force Base. And then the rest of us went to Walter Reed. And now my little family, my family of 21 brothers that went to 8 brothers with visiting family coming from across the street, went to 5. And then, they were only there at Walter Reed to basically hand off some guys that needed continued surgery. So my family of 5 turned into 3, and it was me and 2 other people. And everyone from there went to their respective duty stations. And before I know it, I'm on a plane with 2 other people, and we're going back to Bragg, and the plane lands, and we go to the emergency room at Womack to get checked in one last time, and there's a bunch of people waiting for us with like welcome home signs, which was really cool, a pretty emotional event. And then we get checked in. My wife is there, and they repeat some scans, repeat some labs, and then one of my buddies is with my wife in his car, and we get discharged from the ER. Like I had a cough, they discharged me from my ER at Womack and they're like they're trying to wheel me out in a wheelchair, and I was like, I'll try, I can walk. It's gonna hurt, but like I don't do that. Like, and I walk out of the ER, and it's like I work at Womack. Like that was another thing that kind of fricked with my head, was like, it's like, this is my hospital. Not only is this, it's not just some hospital, but like I work here. You know, like that's where I park. So like then they're like discharging me like I cut my finger, you know, like, okay, there you go. Here's your discharge paperwork, like helicopter crashes, avoid those, you know. It's like, what? And like I leave, and it's just my wife and I, and a buddy comes and picks us up. And even my wife and I were just like looking at each other like, is this real? You know, because she didn't expect to get me home that quick. And like everything's gone. Everything, all the support is gone. The support from in theater, the support from Baghdad, the support, the Wounded Warrior ladies, all the ICU docs from Launch Stool, the air crews on the CCAT team, your brothers. It just, and you're walking out of the ER, and it's like, there's my parking space. This is the hospital I work at. My wife is here. I just got discharged. I think I was just in a freaking helicopter crash 5-7 days ago. Like, what the fuck? It was like surreal. Like just crazy. I don't know how to explain it, but like, and then we're driving home. I don't say a word. I don't know what to say. And we go to a burger joint like a mile from my house in downtown Southern Pines, and like I just remember like we're looking at each other like, oh my God, like, and my wife and I are, and like we're just eating a burger. I go home. We're like making small talk, like, you know, oh, what was it like? You know, oh, it's terrible. Like, can we talk about something else? Like, honestly, it wasn't even that. It's like, well, what was it like? It was like, I don't even know. Like at that point in time, like I couldn't even process that it was like this horrible. Like I was just like, what is it like? It's like I said terrible, but like in reality, like I can't even really fully comprehend what just happened. Like I have not had time to process it. And then we go home, and it's my first night back at home, and that was a little weird. Like just kind of, I go to sleep mostly just because I'm so physically exhausted. But it wasn't until like the next day, like I wake up, and then like we have some plans. Like I think one of my buddies was throwing me a big party, so he threw me a big party. We had some like nice barbecue. So I spent the day hanging out with a bunch of friends. But again, like these friends don't, they're friends from town. Some of them are military, but like they're very good friends, and they care about me and they love me, but they're not like the guys that were in the crash with me. They don't know what I just went through. And so they were hanging out. It's just getting showered with love. I'm very fortunate to have a support group of friends like that. Spend all day at the barbecue. I go home. I'm hanging out with my family, like my wife, and you know, we're getting ready to go to bed. I had just spent the day with amazing friends, had amazing food. I'm getting in bed with my amazing wife. I'm watching my favorite thing on TV, and then it hits. And it hit. Oh, and the other thing too is like earlier that day I had seen a video clip of the crash because everyone had talked about it. Everyone had talked about how horrible this crash was and how we're all so lucky to be alive. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, I was there. But I didn't really know how right they were. Like, it was a horrible experience to me because I was there, but at the same time, like, I'm pretty sure a hard landing would have been a horrible experience to me because, like, my N at the time was 0. And all, like, anything outside the normal, I'm pretty sure I would have considered horrible. So, like, it was just horrible to me, but I didn't really realize how horrible. And when one of my buddies, who's let's just say a former dude who does the thing, was looking at the video and was like, I don't know how you're alive. You know, or anyone's alive. Like, I watched that video and I gotta be honest with you, it didn't look like me. Like, it didn't look like our helicopter. I know it was. Uh but like I couldn't believe it was our helicopter. Because I'm no stranger to trauma and danger and explosions. I'm a trauma surgeon. Like, I know kinetic energy injuries and high speed injuries. That was a video of something where no one survived. And like, I really wish we could show it, but I can't. But it is imagine a 47, 100 feet in the air, and a giant tarp gets stuck between the rotor blades and it explodes. The back half comes off and it just drops head up, butt down, and then explodes. I don't know how we survived. And I saw that video and like, my first instinct was like, that's not us. That can't be us. And if that is us, that's even more terrifying because like, I know we shouldn't be alive. And that was really scary to me to see that video because I was like, that's not funny. Like, that's not, oh my God, close call. That's like, I just saw myself get decapitated. What the fuck, right? Like, I shouldn't be alive, right? Like, it was like truly sickening watching the video because it's a video of you dying, right? And I had to stop myself from saying that because of what happens next, which is that I had a pretty significant psychotic break. Like, again, I'm home. It's been a couple days. All of a sudden, I just had a whole day of amazing, like, being loved by friends and family, a barbecue in my honor. You know, I'm with my wife. Watching my favorite TV show. Like, life is as perfect as it can ever be for anyone. And I'm like, man, what did I do to deserve this? This is so amazing. And then it hit me because I thought back to the video I had seen earlier that day, and I was like, oh, it's because I'm fucking dead. Like, that's why everything is so great. Because I'm dead. This is heaven. Like, none of this is real. This is a simulation. I died in that accident. Like, I'm a trauma surgeon. I know what people can and can't survive. Like, I know, duh, like, you died in the accident, and this is your afterlife. And it was this pervasive thought that I could not shake. I mean, it was just there. And, like, it was a thought that felt real. It wasn't a thought. It was an immediate, like, belief. Like, I thought I had figured it out. I truly thought, like, oh, the wool's been pulled back. I can see it for what it is. This is a simulation. This is heaven. This is hell. This is purgatory. Like, I'm dead. Very 100% believed to be true that I was dead. Nothing could dissuade me. And, like, I even talked to my wife because I looked at her. I was like, you're not real. She was like, what? I was like, are you real? Is this real? Like, how do I know that you're real? Like, this is, I clearly, this is all like just the afterlife and me being dead, and I'm okay with it. But, like, I just want you to know that I know the reality, which is that this is not real. And she was like, oh my God. Like, she's like, are you fucking with me? And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not. Like, I'm dead. I just feel bad for the Caitlin that is back on Earth, but, like, you know, and she's like, okay, there's, I need to make some phone calls. And so she went, and again, like, you know, they were worried because they being the therapist was worried because she was like, are you going to try to test this theory? like that you're dead by like trying to hurt yourself or someone else. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. But it was like, yeah, she made a phone call and got me in to see the therapist with my organization the next day. But it went very quickly from this belief that I'm dead and that this was just the afterlife, to a fear of like not wanting to sleep, because I was afraid that if I went to sleep, I would wake up out not in my simulation anymore, right? Like I would wake up and I wouldn't be in my, perfect little heaven, my slice of heaven. I would be back in the trauma bay in reality, covered in, 90% burns, missing 2 legs, or in an ICU bed with a tube in my mouth and a ventriculostomy, right? Or I'd wake up back with Johnny Cash, right? Like, I didn't sleep for like 3 days because I was scared to, because of the hallucinations I had had and the fact that my whole world transitioned from combat, this horrible hellhole pit of a burning 47 and a barb, to back home at one of my burger joints in bed with my wife after being celebrated by all my friends and family 8 days later. Right? It's like I understand that everyone at every part of that chain was trying to do what they thought was best, which is take care of you and get you home. Take care of you and get you home. Take care of you and get you home. But we do it so well and so fast that, yes, you are checking the physical injuries home, physical injuries home, physical injuries home. But like your brain needs time to catch up with that. Like that, and so
So I guess I had a quick question about that stuff. So I guess it's kind of cliche, but did you kind of feel like a cog in the wheel, just part of the machine once you got entered, you are processed, and like you mentioned, like we are super efficient, but I think that efficiency is measured in time and hours and days, not necessarily completeness, if that makes sense. Like he physically is stable to get on this plane. He will get on this plane and go to the next station.
Yeah. So, yes, I did feel like a cog, but being part of like things like JTS, right? You kind of have to have that. Like, I get it. I felt the full force of it. And definitely was, I think I had like 5 different hospital numbers and patient numbers, right? Like you're definitely a cog, but when you're, at the height of GWAT, when you're trying to move people back as far as possible, as fast as possible, that's just the reality. It becomes a logistics game, right? That's a whole other talk about like medical mobilization and evacuation. Especially if we're going to talk about LISCO and moving, redeploying and medevacing hundreds, if not thousands of people a day. Like now, yeah, like you kind of have to have a machine that processes people just to get them home. But again, to your point, it's a necessity, but we got to be able to do it better, right? Like there is a part, maybe do it slower, maybe, but like I did feel like a cog in the machine for sure. I'll tell you a story, right? When we landed at Walter Reed and are getting moved from Andrews Air Force Base back to Walter Reed, they stopped the buses, all of our medevac buses, and held them on the airstrip so that a chaplain could come on the bus with all of our names and social security numbers, with all of our respective command, and he had a stack of envelopes with checks in them from the Army Emergency Relief Fund. And he gets on the bus and he's wearing like this high vis vest. And there's all of us on this bus, like some of them are in stretchers, some of them are sitting down, some of them are floor loaded, like, you know, and he's coming down the aisle and he's like, who are you? And it's like one of the guys is like, I'm so and so. He's like, can you tell me your social? He's like, yeah. He's like, and then he opens up this paper and he reads, the United States Army would like to thank you for your service and and like this just he's like, please accept this check from the Army Emergency Relief Fund on our behalf, and hands him a check. And I remember like the first guy in the bus when like he gets it, just like turned around to us. It was like, is this fucking for real? And like we're all just like sitting there. One guy's back there on a vent, you know, like another guy's got an X-Fix. I'm on oxygen. I can't freaking breathe. And we're just like, they're holding up our trip to Walter Reed for this. Like, but again, like, I get it. Like, what were they doing? They were expressing gratitude from the United States Army and giving each of us a check. It was actually like a card with money on it, but like that's pretty awesome. Like in reality, it's like the concept of what was trying to be done was amazing. Like getting soldiers a direct face-to-face thank you and a monetary reimbursement the second they hit soil in the United States. Thumbs up. Awesome. Good job. The delivery, not great. You know, like it was just like, yeah, great idea, great drive, failure on the delivery. Like, that's what we got to work on, right? Like, you know, how to move thousands of people back from a hellhole to the States. We have the planes, we have the vehicles, we have the will to do it and the logistic chain to do it. It's there. We do it. We can do it better, right? Like, yeah, you know, so like you're right. Definitely felt like a cog in the wheel. The machine exists. I truly believe the machine was built with good intentions. And it does, at the end of the day, what it is supposed to do. It just needs to be greased a little bit with some humanity, you know, and some understanding of what it's like to come home from combat, right? And so
I mean, I guess where would those pause points be if you, like, you're king for the day, they put you in charge of revamping and humanizing the process, and let's just take, you know, the physical aspect out of, like, this person needs this specific piece of equipment in order to, like, survive. I think that would overcome the need for a pause point, if that makes sense. So let's not include those things, but like from Iraq to Germany to the States, where would you have a pause point?
I think
the pause multiple.
I think the pause point should have been I think there should have been a pause point in Baghdad and a pause point in Germany. Once you hit the U.S., all bets are off. You know, it's so easy for family, friends, journalists, whoever to just like get in there, right? And so I think there needs to be really two pause points. One of them in country, in the country where the thing happened, but in an area of relative safety. And you need to be with your buddies. For a while, you know, I don't know for how long is right. I don't know. But for some extended period of time. And then you need to move to another place that is not America, that is not the place where you got injured, but some place that's more hospitable, probably like Germany. where you can hang out for a while. And I know a lot of you listening to this, if you have deployed to combat and come home, you're familiar with a place called the Rob, right? Are you familiar with the Rob
I
in
haven't
Germany?
been, no.
So
I
the
haven't.
Rob is, it's I believe, again, like, I believe the Rob was designed to do exactly this, but the delivery failed, right? And so, like, the Rob is a bunch of barracks in Germany for soldiers that are getting remobilized or redeployed back home, right? And so, if you're coming back from Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever, you would stop in Germany and you would spend a couple days at the Rob. They have beds, they have showers, they have, and that's kind of, they have beds and hot water. And then, and they have phones and Wi-Fi. That's so they check the box on having that facility. The problem is that they don't have food, they don't have a restaurant, they don't have like any real R&R stuff. It's, you don't have your own room. It's just this big open bay with like cubicles, and you're sleeping in like cubicles, right? And so like the concept is there. It just like needs to be done better, right? And so like what unfortunately happens is you go to the Rob, which is supposed to be a place for people coming back to redeploy, and it turns into just this like depressing event of like, what the fuck? I'm in a FEMA tent, like I'm showering in another building. I don't have a way of getting food. I can't have a beer with my guys. There's a lights out hour, like it just wasn't. And I get it, because like sometimes people can't be adults, so like they can't have alcohol, right? And so like, but there's a difference between like not having alcohol and like actively trying to arrest people like at the door because they maybe smell like alcohol, right? Like it's just, there's a lot of like, the concept is there. The concept I'm trying to make, which is like you need a place for people to decompress before they get home. The concept is there. But again, the delivery is shit, right? And so, it's just, that's kind of what I think of is like, it needs to be the Rob, but better, right? More human. Like whoever's in charge of this needs to spend a month at the Rob and see what the Rob does well, because the Rob does do a lot of things well. I mean, they see hundreds, if not thousands, of people a day, and they give them all safety, Wi-Fi, a way to call home, a way to shower, a way to decompress. But then there are things that it doesn't do well, right? And so, like, again, the ideas there just needs to be better. So, yeah, that's what I would do. I would have 2 places and times where guys could stop. And also, like, again, like I think that Lisco is going to solve that problem for us. Like, I don't think we're going to be using C-17s to fly hundreds of thousands of soldiers back and forth from wherever, right? I think all the C-17s are going to be used for war, and we're going to go back to fucking cruise ships to get people back home, right? So this is a problem that might solve itself, right? Maybe. We'll see. Yeah. So, yeah. And so then I got checked in with my therapist. She's amazing. I do want to give her a shout out. Her name is Jana Rekadal. She is the most amazing therapist, a most amazing person I've ever met. She saved my life. She's just such a good human being. Because I'll talk about this at the end, is like, not only did she get me better and like get me recovered from the injuries, the I would say the two major moral injuries I suffered, behavioral health injuries I suffered, but she got me better. And that's one of the things that I want to talk, that I'll really hit on again at the end, is like the thing with behavioral health and behavioral injuries, and I say this all the time, is like, as someone who's broken their femur, if you break your femur, you can have the best surgery, the best nutrition, the best healthcare, the best rehab. You're never going to really be back to 100%. You can get pretty close, but like you start here, you get injured, and you come back to like right there, right? At best case scenario, right? With behavioral health, if done right, you can actually get to being where you were better than you were before, right? Which is fascinating to think that there's an injury that can make you stronger, right? And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like that's true. And the flip side of that is when behavioral health is done poorly, I mean, it can ruin you, right? And so I'll talk about that in more detail at the end. Please remind me to end on that, but like, if I forget, but like, you know, and so Jana is really who showed me that. And she's really the person who, like, I would say not only just made me better, back to where I was, but took me way beyond that. And I can't imagine just even being the person I was before this helicopter crash. My marriage is better. My outlook on life is better. It's, in a weird way, probably one of the better things to have happened to me from a mental health standpoint. Not to say I'm fixed, I don't need therapy anymore. I still go regularly, because it's like rehab, right? Rehab doesn't end. You're not like, all right, done with rehab, I'm good forever. I need to don't work out ever again. Like, I've done the gym thing. You know, like, no, right? Like, it's just like working out. Behavioral health is just like working out. You go to the gym every day. You got to do little things every day to get your mind right. Those things taught to you by these amazing professionals who study this shit for a fucking living, right? Like, imagine that. There's people who like do this shit every day, and guess what? They're good at it, right? And the Army, especially our organizations, have some of the best in the world. That get what we've gone through, right? And so, yeah. For example, I see Jana for the first time, and hold on one sec, sorry. I see Jana for the first time, and I tell her everything, you know, that I'm doing these disassociations, and she immediately jumps into like her, okay, well, let's try to bring you back to reality. I don't know if you've ever gone to a therapist and done the whole PTSD thing, or at that time acute stress response, right? So like they try to do this thing where they ground you. Like, okay, if you're in one of these moments, like, ground yourself back to reality with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Like see 5 things, like hear 4 things, touch 3 things, smell 2 things, and whatever, and like taste 1 thing, right? Or like however they do it. It's all basically use of sensory to touch the world around you, to bring you back to reality out of where you were just now in the PTSD realm. However, I told her that that's bullshit. It's not going to work, because I'm dead. This is all a simulation, and I know what this table is going to feel like, and what this coffee is going to taste like, and what this shirt's going to smell like, right? Like, I know that my brain is making this all up, or it's my own personal heaven or hell. Like, that's not going to, all it's going to do is actually reinforce my delusion, right? That's not going to work. And she's like, okay. Well, what about something you can't predict, or that you've never experienced? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I'm willing to bet.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, she didn't do that, but that's kind of what exactly. She's like, I mean, that would have worked actually, but like that was something we got on, right? And she's like, what about the Notebook? I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, have you ever seen the Notebook? I was like, no, I'm no. She's like, well, you should watch the Notebook. And I was like, why? And she's like, because I bet that there is no way that you could predict what is in that movie and the ending of that movie, because you don't seem like the kind of guy that would watch that or predict that or write something like that. And I was like, that's fascinating. I was like, you're right. I have no idea. Like, my brain cannot come up with the Notebook, right? So I watched it, and I knew it was the first break in the facade that I was not dead, because I was like, because I wanted to be dead. So, like, I went back and I was like, yeah, I think I'm not dead, because if this was my heaven, I sure as shit wouldn't have been subjected to that. And to anyone who may be listening, like who was involved in that or likes that, I'm sorry. It was it was a very well done movie. It's just not my bag. And so like, but I was just like, yeah. And so then she's like, okay, that's good. And I was like, yeah, okay, that helped a lot. And she's like, okay, now if you're ever getting these feelings that you are dead and that this is not real, start coming up with things that you could not predict. And so my wife came up with a list that she calls cool facts, of like bizarre off the wall facts that I would not know, but that could also quickly fact check her, so that I knew she wasn't making shit up, right? And she's like, so my wife started, like, whenever I was having these moments, like, because something would happen, like I'd have a conversation with someone that I was sure I had before, or like deja vu, or like things were just going too well, or I would get really lucky, and I'd be like, oh yeah, it's because you're dead, dude. And still, even today, when I get like, especially when I get like accoladed, like an accolade or something, like there's a part of me that's like, oh yeah, well, like you're dead. This, like, you're just, it comes up every once in a while. These like this like just undulating kind of thought that like maybe this is really like the long con and I am dead, right? And so the things that help with that are like, she has this list of like cool facts, or I just do something completely out of the blue, something I would never do before, like walking down the street in Southern Pines, just like lay down on the sidewalk and start rolling around like I'm on fire. She's like, you're gonna look crazy, but you're also not going to be able, you also have never done that, so you don't know what it's going to feel like to do that, and you're not going to be able to predict what the people around you are going to be doing, right? And she's like, it may be embarrassing, you might even get like some weird questions or interactions, but like, just like if you're having a real bad moment, just go ahead and do that. Like, do something totally unpredicted. And that, working with her for that got me out of a lot of that, right? A lot of that, I got normal pretty quickly. And this is one thing I want to talk about, is like, we're all type A people. We're driven, motivated people. And we want immediate satisfaction, immediate results, right? Like, and so it's like, I worked with her for a couple weeks pretty intensively. I saw her every day. And I immediately got better. In about a week or two, I was like back to like, I knew I was alive. This outside, paranoia delusion, like, was not there. I was back to myself. I was back at work. And things were going great. I was like, oh my God, I've had time to process where I am and everything I went through, and like me and a couple of the guys had gotten together and decompressed some more too, which was important, getting with some of the guys because we all live locally. And so like, you know, it's probably a month now, a month or two now, and I feel really good. Like I'm seeing Jana, um, you know, once a week now, once every 2 weeks, and we're just going through processing some of the fears and some of the just like, you know, just trying to process it. And one of the things I had done is I had been keeping a journal, so I had written down. I started this actually in Germany because I didn't know what to do, and I just started writing down. I have a Galaxy with a stylus, so I was literally writing down everything I could remember from before the accident to my current state. Right, is like every person I had met, every smell, every sight, every emotion that I was feeling when certain things happened. Right, and like, and I didn't realize that that's actually a very important part of trauma therapy, is like writing and documenting. And so like, when I came to see Jenna, I had already done like a lot of the work because I had written it out. She made me write it out again. It was basically, we started with these trauma writing sessions where the first couple sessions I was just like for an hour and a half just writing my memory of the event over and over and over again. But I had been doing that for about 2 months, and I felt good. And I want to say it's like there's probably three things that I kind of went through during the from a behavioral health standpoint. One was the initial paranoid delusions, right? That I'm dead. The next thing, which I'm still working with but has gotten significantly better, which is PTSD. And then the last thing is depression, because oftentimes those two things come together. And so the initial thing, this paranoid delusion, got better pretty quickly, right? Pretty quickly right away. And I thought I was okay. And so we had a big training event, our selection course. And I was like, man, I got that instant gratification, you know, a couple weeks of therapy, I'm good to go. Like, I fucking won therapy, right? Like, yeah, dude, I'm the best. You know, there's a lane where they wanted us to get on a C-130. So I am now cadre on a C-130 at night, and I'm fine. Like, I don't foresee any problem with this. I had not been in an airplane. I'd been in some commercial airplanes, which did not really feel good. But I was like, I can do this. Get in the plane, and I'm proctoring the candidates, and we take off, and they do the whole combat takeoff straight up, and then they start banking hard and doing G's and 0 G's and all this stuff. And the next thing I know, I'm on the ground on all fours, and a buddy of mine who's another proctor is on the ground with me, and he's holding my shoulder, and he's keyed into my mic, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And there's another proctor standing next to him, and she's just shaking her head, and I look at my buddy, I'm like, no, I'm not okay. How did I get down here? And she's like, you just like hit the deck and started crawling around for like 15 seconds. And I was like, yeah, I have no fucking recollection of that at all. I'm not okay. And so they kind of let me sit down. And then I collected myself. I stepped back in and led some of the lanes. And, but, you know, we hit the ground, and I was like, I've got a whole new problem set to deal with, because I was not in control at all. And I worked with Jana on that. because another thing happened. I was coming back from a particularly bad call shift, a really bad trauma call shift. And I hadn't slept in like 24 hours. It was a bad night, lots of death. And I'm driving home, and I pull up to an intersection, and next to me at the intersection is this semi-truck. And the diesel fumes and the loud engine and just the heat. And I was like, I don't really like this at all. The light turns green. I drive out. The diesel truck passes me. And right when it passes me, another truck comes in and just fucking T-bones me and launches me to the right of the car. And just all this crunching metal, breaking glass. I can feel myself hit the right side of the car and my head hit, and I can feel the twisted metal and the heat from fire and all this stuff. And then I wake up and I'm back at the intersection. None of it had happened. And there's a car behind me honking the horn, and the light's green. I have no fucking idea how long I was sitting there at a green light at an intersection. But like what I just described with that vehicle, like, happened. Clear as day. And I was like, I would get these intense triggers, whether it's diesel fuel, a roaring engine right next to me, or being in a plane and feeling the G's again at night in a dark fuselage. Like, I would get these intense triggers and just like PTSD, disassociate, right? Not be there. And it's very hard to describe that to someone that's like it's like all of a sudden you are like in the most vivid dream you've ever had in your life, and then out of it, right? And it's just like, whoa, I was not in control of that, like, it's not like being in high school and like, doing something illicit with the intention of going to that fantasy realm. It's like, okay, I got my music and my TV and like, I'm ready, let's do this. And then you're here and then you come back. It's like, oh no, I'm in the middle of my work day. No, you're fucking not. Okay, now you're back. It's like, what? Like, like I didn't. And so it's incredibly terrifying and disruptive. And so I worked with her on that, with EMDR, which was huge. And it's again, like, do you know what that is? EMDR? So it's, I can't, remember what it stands for, but it's EMDR. And what it is it's a trauma therapy technique where you take a really traumatic memory, and you're staring at all these little flashing lights, but there's ways to do it with noise. But what it really is like it's some sort of repetitive stimulus, as you are reliving this. You are getting hit by some sort of repetitive stimulus as you relive a very traumatic moment. And the purpose of it is to relive it in such excruciating detail that you become numb to it over time. At least that's what happened to me. I took a week off work after that last event at the intersection. I told my boss, I was like, I need to take a week off work and just do EMDR for a week straight, which for anyone who's done EMDR, that's aggressive. Like, usually you do 1 day a week or 2 days a week, and you do it over months. And I told Jana, I was like, listen, I want to do this. Like, let's fucking just go all in. I'll take a week off work and let's just do this. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we did it for like hours a day of just literally sitting there staring at this bouncing blue light, literally reliving every detail and emotion from the event in painful detail, to the point, like the first 2 days we would be done and I would just go sit at the Starbucks on Post and just like have a coffee and stare out the window for hours. Like I didn't know what to do. And so, but then by like day 3, I was just like fucking tired of this memory. I was just tired of it. I was like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to be scared of this anymore. I was just like, it means nothing to me, right? But then she took it even further and not only just took away the power from that terrible feeling and event, but then you beat that memory into you again with a positive affirmation. It's like, okay, let's take away the power of this bad memory and let's take something strong. Like for me, for example, my mantra that you come up with is like, when bad things happen, I will do my best, right? Like, you know, my big fear of that moment wasn't that I was going to die. I'm actually okay with dying. Like, I'll be dead, not my problem, right? What I wasn't okay with was like the fact that like in my last moments I would fail or not be good enough or be in a lot of pain and scared, right? That was my fear, is like in the last moments I'll be scared or in a lot of pain. So like my mantra was like, hey, when bad things happen, I'm going to do my best, right? So I'm going to take this scary moment and I'm going to relive it with the thought of like, if I die, I die, but if I live, if I'm alive at the end of this bad thing that's happening, I'm going to do my best. And it was like kind of like let's get back into like let's get ready to do shit afterwards and pick up the pieces, right? And so then it became like these stimuluses of death in the trauma bay, of a dark fuselage at night, a shaky helicopter or airplane on the way to Seattle, like all a diesel engine next to me at a busy intersection, right? All this stuff that like would stimulate all these massive emotional fear responses. Now, like I do get a little bit of that like physiologic, like, oh, I don't like that, but that's followed by like okay, something bad might happen. I got to be ready. Like I got to be ready and like ready to do good and to be the best version of myself afterwards, right? And so, like I was saying before, you work on taking this thing that can break you if you let it, and then you take away the power from it, and then you turn it into something that makes you better, right? That's just one small example of how behavioral health, when done correctly by an expert, can take something that just wants to destroy you, such a bad memory or emotion that makes you broken, and when handled in the right way, can be one of the stronger, more inspirational things in your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You. Yeah.
I did have a question. Not, I guess it wasn't your experience, but maybe your thought as a leader now. Now you're on the higher end, and you're looking after others, right? With talking, just my own experiences with talking with other guys, it can be coming back, whether you're injured or not injured. The whole idea of seeing a therapist is something that we downplay a lot, I think, in our community. That we don't need it because we're stronger than literally every other human being on earth, because we are genetically superior. And but even with all that superiority, right, you are actually still human. You still have all the same problems everyone else does, and you are susceptible to the same problems everybody else is. How would you advise somebody? Let's say you're recognizing that somebody's come back and they're a lot more agitated than they ever were before. Something is off. how, as a leader, would you advise this person, like, hey, like, you probably need to talk to somebody?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, how you do that is, there's a couple things in there that we gotta talk about, because that's a very important point. So one, how do you do that? One is it's hard to do if you haven't gone through it yourself. Um, Not to say it's impossible, but one, uh, if you've gone through something like that, I think it's kind of an obligation for you, whether you like it or not, to be there for the people that need the same help, right? So that being said, not everyone, thankfully, will have the trauma that I've had, um, which is a good thing. So what you do is you recognize it and you just talk to your guy. And you don't really fucking talk. I know this is going to sound so cliche bullshit, but it's true. You just listen. Don't go to the guy and be like, or girl, and be like, hey, you have to go see someone. Like that's an order. Or hey, I listened to this great podcast, and he said, you should listen to this podcast. Like, because they don't know, right? They don't know what it's like. So like, but I'll tell you, as someone who doesn't know, what you should do is just ask how they're doing, and they're going to say I'm fine. Ask again, they're going to say, oh, I'm fine, and then just like start talking about something else. If you have the ability to professionally take them out to dinner, go get a coffee, go out, go to lunch, just work on a project with them, just be around and listen to them. That's a big thing, right? So like just being there for them and listening to them. The other thing too is to don't don't you have to play the game like, even though I've gone through some trauma, I have not gone through the trauma that they've gone through. And so I don't know what they're going through. Don't ever try to play the game like, oh, I know what you're going through, man. Like my wife left me. It's like, no, you don't. Like you have an idea, and you can say I have an idea. I've gone through something. I don't know what you're going through, but like I've gone through something bad, and here's how it helped me, right? So like, and that is really going on to like the thought process of like, how do you handle that? You talk to them like they're a human fucking being, one, and you just listen to their concerns, and it's gonna take a repetitive time, and a couple probably iterations of talking to them, but also two, which is the more important thing, is like at some point you have to look at them like they broke their ankle, right? And if you have a hairline fracture in your leg, you can walk it off. There are people who are tough enough to walk it off and take some light duty and mend themselves at home and wear a bullshit cast, and it will heal eventually. It'll heal wrong, and they will walk with a limp for the rest of their life. Well, guess what? Like, behavioral health is the same fucking thing. And that's like, I was asked to give a similar talk to my old organization, on this exact topic, is like, we as an institution need to reassess our concept of behavioral health. And your brain is an organ and a body part, just like every other part of your body. And you just had a talk on traumatic brain injury, right? And it focuses a lot on like the physical injury to the brain, the primary, the secondary, the neuroplastic stuff. Like, we get, and like, again, our community, our guys want to know everything and have control. It's all about like that alpha mentality of like, I gotta be in control, right? Like, okay, and they try to learn everything. It's why you see all these, I don't want to get too into it, but like guys try to be, they try to become like podcast, and you've seen it. Like they try to become like the podcast and YouTube and like experts in a day because they want that sensation of control, and that's understandable. I get why they're doing that. They want control. They're in control of every other facet of their life, but sometimes they're not. And so they want to be in control, and they learn every little thing. And that's why in this in the community right now, there's such a focus on like making new neural pathways and like fixing the injury to the brain and all these drugs they can take to fix the physical injury to the brain because they can see it, because it's a real thing, because it's a tangible thing. Well, I'll tell you that like the electricity going on in here and the emotions and the thoughts are just as real as everything else. And like, you need to understand that. The same enthusiasm that we put into building our muscles and our response times and our reflex and our intelligence and our neuroplastic pathways has to be put into emotional and thought and like your emotional and behavioral aspect, like, because it is a thing. Even though you can't see it, it is an organ. It's an invisible organ that can get injured, that needs to be rehabbed, that is actually the only organ in your body that can get stronger with time and with injury. Your muscle doesn't get stronger with age and doesn't get stronger with injury, but your brain does. Not your brain, your behavioral responses, your behavioral intelligence, your emotional intelligence, right? That gets stronger with time and stronger with injury if done right. And when you think about it, it is who these guys are, right? That's what's so funny, is like they're neglecting the one thing that makes them who they are, who you are, right? It's who you are right now, setting up this podcast, why you did everything on behind you on the walls, why you're wearing what you're wearing, how you're interpreting what I'm saying right now. That is you. That's an invisible thing inside you. And why do you not want, and it's who defines you. It's what makes you you and not me. Why would you not want to take care of that? Like that is the fiber of who you are. That is your soul, right? And so like, there are experts in our organizations that will actually make that thing stronger. And, it's, I got really depressed kind of after all this because I was like, there was a part of me in a time where I was like, I'm not who I used to be, right? One of the things is I still had my uniform that had been cut off me. And I've been working with art therapy to sew it back together with big ass like red fibers, so like you could see where it was cut and everything. And it's been kind of a cool therapeutic process. But I didn't want to look at that uniform for the longest time because it's covered in blood and sweat and diesel fuel and all the shit. It smelled. It elicited a lot of responses, but I remember the first time I looked at it with Gianna, it was all cut up, and I just started sobbing because I was like, that's who I am. I'm broken. That is the uniform of someone who used to be an American fucking hero. Like this, everything I ever wanted to be in life. This trauma surgeon hero who was doing the shit. Like that uniform represents what I thought was the best version of myself. And here it is in tatters. And it just broke my heart. And she's like, I don't think that's true. And I was like, she's like, why do you say that? And I was like, because right now, I don't really want to go on a dangerous mission. I don't really want to, be in a helicopter or be in an explosion or all this stuff. And I don't like having to think about things like death and danger and all this stuff, to me specifically. And it used to be where I would volunteer for everything, at the expense of myself. Like, you told me, hey, we're going on a mission that's like a no-fail mission and you're probably going to die. Like, here you go, send me, right? And it's now it's I don't want to do that. I'm scared to do that. I now know what risks lie ahead firsthand. And she was like, that sounds like that you're just growing up, right? That you are aware of your surroundings and you understand things like risk and danger, right? Because I don't really think I understood that stuff. I knew it, obviously, right? I took care of it as a trauma surgeon. I knew what could happen to people, but I didn't know it, right? And, part of it was understanding, being okay with the new version of myself, which understands things like risk and danger and how to mitigate them and how to deal with them and how to teach other people the realities of this stuff, right? And be that older, wiser person, right? And when bad shit happens, be there for them, right? And so, she's like, it sounds like you're just growing up and being a more mature person. And is it suffice to say that this stuff is probably going to make you a better leader and someone that people can count on in the future? I was like, yeah. I was like, that's exactly correct. And it was like a realization to me, right? And I saw it. I don't want to talk too much about operational stuff, but it's anyone who's ever been doing stuff, right, knows that the best ground force commanders and the best team leaders are dudes that have been in some pretty terrible fucking situations. Right. I mean, that's obvious, right? The dudes that have been through some pretty horrible stuff are usually the best team leaders and the best ground force commanders because they know how bad things can be. And they hopefully don't want to ever go back to that or put themselves or their guys through that. That is what I will call military emotional intelligence, right? Hey, I'm a leader. I remember when I went through some bad fucking shit, and I'm not going to let my kid go through that, my soldier, right? Now, again, you have abusive parents out there, right? Who are like, oh, I went through some horrible thing. I remember when I was in Afghanistan, my guys were getting schwacked every night. I had 10 fucking brothers die in my arms. So that's how we're going to do things because that's what fucking war is. And they send their guys into horrible situations because it's what they did and what they understand. And they didn't have someone like Jana to show them that you need to be better, or they're just chasing some fucking awards and accolades, and they're using their guys to do it, right? So there are disappointing dads everywhere, but I would say, back to your original question, as a leader with a guy who's hurting, it's your job to demonstrate to them that the most important organ in their body is damaged, and that if they want to be the best version of themselves, that they need to treat it just like they would a broken leg or a broken muscle. I mean, imagine if all of our guys approached behavioral health with the same fervor that they approach physical rehab, right? I mean, I'm not an operator, but I got to imagine if this is working better, not just intelligence and reaction time, but like if your mind is working better, I got to imagine that's only going to give you positive advantages in whatever you do, whether it's surgery or killing, right? Like, I mean, just to be able to understand human cues better, or what your teammates are going through and relate to them better, or what a partner force is going through and understanding it better, right? Like, even if hopefully you don't have these people, but even if you have like a true psychopath in your organization, like, you can even logically explain to that person, like, hey, you might want to go to a therapist. You're not going to get better because you're a psychopath, but like, you may want to go to a therapist just to learn how to deal better with people, right? Like, it's only going to give you an advantage. And like, for the non-psychopaths, hopefully, like, that there's people that are listening to this, like, you should probably go to a therapist to like get better, right? To learn more about yourself and how you handle bad stimuluses, like, because it's permeated to all aspects of my life. Going through this whole process, I'm a better husband than I ever was. I'm a better surgical educator than I ever was. All the stuff that used to bother me, that used to really set me off, doesn't set me off anymore. All the stuff that used to scare me, I have good exercised ways of dealing with that fear and turning it into something positive, right? All the stuff that I used to be reckless about, I'm no longer reckless about, because like I see the dangers, right? My outlook on life is so much better because I've seen how bad things can get, right? And like and instead of getting down and out and gloomy, you start to focus on what's good. These are all tools that, like, some people are just blessed with having, and some people can just pick up by going through an experience. But like, really, a lot of people need a professional to show them this stuff. And it's, like, what these people are, these behavioral therapists, are physical therapists for the brain. They're not like there to get you in trouble or like, woe is me. They are there to find out what's wrong with your mind and give you exercises to rehab it. And show you things about you that you didn't know about yourself, which is crazy. And I know, and that's probably a big thing, is like, a lot of guys that are listening to this are like, bullshit. There's no fucking therapist out there that's going to tell me something about me that I don't really already know, right? Like, how many people do you work with that probably believe that?
No, the vast majority.
Probably a lot of dudes are like, there's not some chick or dude in some room who's devoted their life to being a shrink who's going to tell me something about me that I didn't know. And I'm going to tell you to your face, that's fucking bullshit. Like, whoever's listening that has that thought, you're fucking dead ass wrong. It's, one, you're wrong. Two, it's disrespectful to think that there aren't people that approach behavioral health with the same drive that you approach your perfection, right? Like, our former organizations, would you agree that our former organizations hire the best people on the planet? Okay. Would you agree that our former organizations have behavioral health support? So by that logic, the people at our former organizations who are in behavioral health support are the best fucking people on the planet. And I guarantee they will show you things about yourself that you did not know, that will improve you, right? And so it's just rewiring how we approach mental health, really. As like, as a, it's so silly to me. Like, not taking it seriously puts you at such a disadvantage in everything you do. And like, going back, like, I should have been doing this, but after my first deployment, I'm so pissed. It's like, it's like I feel like a dude who started going to the gym in middle age. I should have been doing this shit since I was 18. I'd be jacked as shit, right? Like, I'd be mental health, right? I'd be mental health as fuck right now if I had been going, to a therapist after my first appointment, right? But, and so that's the message that I would want to that I want to push out, right? Yeah.
Any final advice or final thoughts?
Take care of your guys. I mean, if you see one of your dudes hurting, I mean, I was a little late this morning getting on because I was up till 3 a.m. talking to one of my buddies. He's going through some stuff. And so one of the things you do when you get into this realm is you start to see other people hurting. And I'll just say that, like, you gotta be there for your guys. This is, even with the best therapist on earth, this is not something that can be done alone. And it's not something that's a quick fix. There are no quick fixes. There's no quick fix to getting jacked and to being a good shooter on the range. And there's no quick fix to being the strongest mental version of yourself, right? It's a labor that takes time and is something you work at for life. You don't just like stop going to the range because you're the best shooter in the world. You don't stop going to the gym because you're the best athlete in the world. And you don't stop going to the therapist or talking to people because your mind is at 100% peak and will always be there, right? It's just not the reality. So talk to your guys, be there for him or her or them, and just listen to what they have to say and just give a shit about your fucking guys. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Max. I really appreciate you jumping on.
No, thanks for having me. Sorry for giving you another fucking long-ass Joe Rogan podcast. I'm sorry, buddy.
That's all right. Too easy, man. But I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you for giving me the opportunity to say this stuff. It's more of a help for me. I appreciate that. There's not a lot of people that want to, unfortunately, hear this stuff. I know it's not the most exciting and cool stuff, but thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Yeah.
That's it for today's podcast. Make sure to go to our website, www.prolongedfieldcare.org. Check out our free downloads and a ton of other helpful information. Grab a bag of our fresh roasted PFC coffee, links in the description below, and stay on the bleeding edge of combat and austere medicine. This is Dennis for the PFC Podcast, out.